Hello, my lovely natsukis. It's your bestie Summer. My rat is not out this time, so no background noise. Outside of I guess my dog or my rat biting its cage or my family members, but outside of that, but that's just usual background noise. Anyways, so it's not gonna be really hard to fix cats because he's put away. Woo! But anyways, guess what I got approval for? Also, by the way, I'm trying to be quiet because I'm totally not re-recording this at my church waiting for my class to come in. Woo! I don't even want to be here. It's way too early for this shit. But anyways, yay, a new fic. It's 2 chapters, so it's not that long, but the chapters are real lengthy, so they make up for it, so long, in fact, that they're gonna need to be done in parts. I think it'll be about 4 parts in total, but it could be more and it could be less. Who knows? Anyways, any warnings will be in the description as always, and without further ado, Death Lingering, a Sally Face podfic written by Canis Rising and read by Summer Audio. Part 1, Chapter 1. Where is it? Where is it? Sal asked himself this question repeatedly as he threw clothes around his room, searching for that little orange bottle. His throat closed bit by bit every time a new location came up free of the only thing that'll keep him from activating the dormant hell in his head. It was the worst possible night this could be happening. Any holiday that tends to involve fireworks was pretty bad, but the 4th of July did tend to be some of the worst of it, along with New Year's, especially when a lot of people in town like Knockfeld take advantage of lax laws around fireworks and can often go a little crazy with them. He knew this from experience now. Henry knocked on Sal's door gently before opening it, finding Sal searching through his room erratically. "Still can't find it, bud?" Henry asked him. He had spent the past hour searching the rest of the apartment for the medication and had, unfortunately, come up empty-handed. Sal shook his head. "No, and I've looked everywhere I could think of, besides my bed or the walls, under the dresser, in my closet, in the laundry, every jacket pocket." Sal's voice started to shake as he started to get a little more worked up about the situation, terrified of the flashbacks that creeped at the edge of his mind and threatened to destabilize him. He gripped a black hoodie in his hand, pockets yet again empty of his medication. "You know," Henry said after a short silence, "we might not be able to find your medication. We might have to rely on other things to keep you calm for tonight. Now might be a good time to practice those coping skills your therapy taught you, right?" Henry tried to find another solution to the problem, but Sal was unusually resistant to solutions that didn't involve his medication. He all too often felt like whatever coping skills he could do alone weren't going to be enough and frequently ignored them in favor of his medication. This could often make nights like these, where the medication was lost or he just didn't have it, into very stressful situations. "You're doing your coping and grounding stuff every day, right?" Henry tried to confirm, but Sal looked away and shrugged his shoulders. "Yeah, sure," he said quietly. Henry sighed as he walked into Sal's room and put a hand on his shoulder. "Medication can't do everything, you know, especially when you don't have it. That's what the skills your therapist gives you are for, so you can use them together alongside the medication." He rubbed Sal's shoulder comfortingly. "The medication can't cure everything in there." Henry poked Sal's head as he spoke. "You have to put in some of that work yourself. Confront it head on." Sal wasn't sure he agreed with that. It seemed like every time he confronted his problems, they'd just get bigger, scarier, and harder to deal with. What's the point of confronting trauma head-on in therapy when all that does is make the nightmares worse when he gets home? What's the point when it just gives him a days-long out-of-body experience every 2 weeks? The medications work fine. He's fine. Everything is fine. As long as he has his medication, which he doesn't. Sal was about to say what was on his mind when his dad interrupted him.
What if I call Lisa and we go down to her and Larry's place tonight? We can put on some movies and play loud music. It'll be fun. It'll keep you distracted. Henry rubbed Sal's arm. That did sound pretty nice. And if he was going to be around anyone through this hell, Larry felt like one of the safest people he could be with. When he first met Larry, when he first started opening up to him about what happened, he was so understanding and careful about it that Sal almost couldn't believe he was having a conversation with a real person. He was fully bracing himself for something harsh, but just like when his prosthetic came off that one time, Larry wasn't disgusted. He wasn't scared, he didn't look away from Sal, nor did he look away from his past. When Sal was done, Larry looked at him in the eye when he spoke. That's some pretty horrible shit you've got banging around in there. Do you want to get high and paint about it? The way Larry was so casual about it made the weight in Sal's chest a bit easier to carry. That one night was more therapeutic than several years of therapy sessions. Maybe they could do it again tonight. Sal nodded. Okay, he croaked. Henry smiled. Okay, we can keep looking just in case, but I'll go and give Lisa a call and let her know what's going on. 'Kay, bud? He gave Sal a tight side hug and left after Sal gave a quiet acknowledgement. It was 1830 now. People weren't going to wait much longer for festivities. Knockfeld had a rule in place saying that you couldn't do fireworks until after 20, but that typically didn't stop people from starting a bit earlier anyways. Not knowing for sure when the first fireworks were going to start kept him on edge, twitching at every creak and thump the aged complex made. He needed to know if Larry had any weed left. It felt like it was going to be his only hope of keeping him calm tonight. He picked up his walkie-talkie. Larry, you there? Yeah, what's up? Larry's voice came from the other end. I can't find my anxiety medication for tonight. Do you have anything left? Sal's voice was quiet, almost ashamed of what he was asking, but mostly he was scared of someone else potentially picking up on their signal or something. Yeah, actually, I just got some more the other day. Do you want some now, or... Larry trailed off. No, I was planning to come down there soon though. Maybe around when the fireworks start, if that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. I'll have it ready for you when we get down here. Thanks, Larry. Anything for you, little dude. Peace. Sal laid on his bed for a while, walkie in hand, staring at the ceiling. Maybe his dad was right. Maybe he needed to let the medication thing go for tonight, and to try and practice the crap his therapist gave him. He took deep breaths, reminding himself of where he was, the date, and tried to take in the surroundings of his room as if they were new again. He hugged Gizmo rather tightly, and the orange cat rubbed his face on Sal's while he took deep breaths. He felt a little better afterwards, but those little comforts weren't enough to keep the horrors away. At 18:45, he decided it was a good idea to try and get himself something to eat. He hadn't eaten very much today, and that was probably contributing to the way his brain was kind of felt like it was shriveled up inside his head. He went to the freezer to throw himself some pizza rolls in the microwave, watching his dad talk to Lisa on the phone rather animatedly. He always seemed so happy talking to her. It had been such a long time since someone was able to make him smile like that. It felt peaceful. Sal sat at the table eating his pizza rolls carefully and trying to retrace his steps in his mind for the umpteenth time today. He remembers taking his pill this morning, but couldn't think of what happened to the Xanax after that. He already checked the drawers of the dresser, and the pills weren't in there, but maybe it was worth checking again. Maybe he needs to check the pockets of every one of his clothes in his dresser now, not just the jackets. Sal finished his pizza rolls and started walking to his bedroom to retrace his steps, but the sound of Gizmo knocking a large metal spoon off of the kitchen counter grabbed his and his father's attention rather quickly instead. Sal jumped and yelled at the sound, feeling pins and needles in his hands and feet from the shock. Sal sighed and went to pick up the spoon, putting it back on the utensil holder before patting the orange cat in his head and pulling him down from the kitchen counter. With Gizmo in his arms, Sal sat on the floor to pet him more comfortably. Damn cat. Henry rolled his eyes as he peered into the kitchen from the living room. Even emotional support animals could be nuisances sometimes. Sal pushed his prosthetic into Gizmo's fur, breathing wavering and hands shaking. Gizmo picked up on his nerves and twisted himself in Sal's gentle grip to nuzzle his head. "You all right, bud?" his father asked. "Yeah," Sal said in a quiet voice. "Just nerves."
Henry watched Sal sit on the kitchen floor in silence for a few minutes before he suddenly stood up, head rush, making him wobble slightly.
"I'm gonna go retrace my steps," Sal said. Again. He went into his room and closed the door. Henry chewed the inside of his lip, the phone receiver still in hand, as he was still on the phone with Lisa when Gizmo knocked that spoon down. "Hello?" Lisa called quietly from the other end, and Henry jumped at the sound of her voice, pulling the receiver back to his ear. Yeah, sorry about that, Lise. The damn cat knocked something off of the counter. Spooked Sal is all, 'cause his nerves are shot." Henry leaned back on the couch and stared above his TV at the spot where the wall met the ceiling. He sighed heavily. "Poor kid," Lisa said. "I'm sure Larry has a little something he can give him, help him relax." She sounded rather hopeful for someone suggesting that Henry's son should smoke weed to keep him calm. But hell, Henry was never much of a sticker to those kinds of rules anyways. He and Diana did all kinds of stuff when they were younger, things much worse than a little pot. Besides, with how he ruined alcohol for Sal by getting addicted, he figured the kid deserved at least one substance. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard them talk about it earlier." His laugh was hollow. He knew either way he would end up having to hear his son scream in abject terror and beg for Diana at least once tonight. Even after all these years, it never got much easier. He can say all the affirmations his therapist gives him into the mirror, but the cancerous pit that grew in his stomach when Diana died never has gotten any smaller. Henry poked his tongue at the stress-induced ulcer on the roof of his mouth. The pain grounded him. "It just gets hard to watch sometimes," Henry said. "The guilt is a lot. Being reminded of Diana is a lot. Watching your kids suffer is a lot." He looked higher up to the ceiling and blinked rapidly. "But you really just have to roll with the punches. No choice but to keep going." Henry managed to compose himself, saving the full trauma dump for his own therapist. "It's all you can do," Risa replied. "But if there's one thing I've learned, being a single parent, is that you can do anything as long as you stick together."
"You're strong, Henry, and so is Sal. I know you'll both make it through this." If she were there, she would have put her arm around his shoulder and gently poked him in the chest for emphasis. Henry used to wonder how she managed to stay so positive even after all she went through with Jim having run out on her suddenly years ago. But from the long talks they've had, he knew that kind of positivity doesn't come out of any brand of naivety. It comes from self-preservation. "If I don't have hope, then I don't have anything," she told him one night. Henry smiled thinly. "I really hope so. Thanks, Lise." He then checked his watch and realized how long they've been on the phone. "I should probably get going, keep looking for Sal's medication, and prep for the rest of tonight." "Thanks for the talk, Lisa. It really did help." "Anytime, my friend. See you soon." Lisa hung up the phone, her warm voice cutting off at the end just a little bit.
Henry put the receiver back and stared at it for a minute, contemplating what could be if he just stopped acting like this was his first crush. Well, it was the first time he's had feelings for someone since Diana died, but Lisa seems pretty happy to be independent now. Besides, what could he even bring to a relationship with her anyway? Everything his dad taught him to do, Lisa could do better. General plumbing and electrical work, cooking, cleaning, car maintenance, and much more. If Henry could do first aid, she could do second aid. If Henry could drive, she could be the getaway driver. Aside from his recovering alcoholism and his interest in computers, there wasn't really anything that made Henry stand out, especially not to someone who could shine as bright as her. Well, time to put that back into the vault. Henry thought to himself, standing up to continue searching for Sal's medication. Though he wasn't sure where else he could look for it at this point. The apartment was kind of a mess from how the two had torn it up. He guessed he could start in the bathroom again. Maybe it would magically appear in the medication cabinet this time. Henry stared blankly into the mirror, into his aging reflection's eyes, before opening the door to the cabinet behind it. Nothing. Again. He sighed. Sal was back in his room, having found a flashlight and using it to search underneath his bed and other furniture. When the underneath turned up empty, he started looking between his bed and the wall instead, but he still came up with Jack. Sal turned to look at the clock on his wall and found that it was already 19:30. The time he should have taken his meds has long since passed, and now he's just grasping at straws. The fireworks were going to start any minute now. His throat tightened and his fists started to white-knuckle his blanket. He really couldn't find his meds. This is really the night he's gonna have. Coping skills weren't gonna save him from the hell he was about to experience. There wasn't a damn thing he could do. There was a loud bang from somewhere in his room, and Sal snapped. He yelled and covered his face with his arms, body curling up defensively on his bed, and he realized that it was starting. He slowly unfurled, laying on his back to look at the ceiling. He couldn't keep himself from crying anymore. Henry heard Sal from where he was searching in the closet of his bedroom and ran over to Sal as fast as he could. He hadn't heard any fireworks yet, but even the littlest things could set Sal off when he was already strung out like this. His anxiety would just turn into a positive feedback loop of hell and continuously get worse until something bad happened. He opened Sal's door quickly but carefully, so as to not let any more loud noise set off his son. "It's okay, Sal. I'm here," Henry said as he approached the side of the bed. "Nobody's gonna get you. You're safe now, okay?" Sal turned over and Henry saw his bare face, his good eye red and staining his cheek with tears. He reached out his hand and Henry grabbed it tightly while using his other hand to stroke Sal's hair soothingly. "Dad, I'm scared," he croaked. He wasn't in the thick of it yet, but at this rate, if they didn't get him down to Lisa's to keep him distracted, he'll get there soon. "I know, bud. Let's try those breathing exercises, alright? I'll do them with you." Henry started taking in slow, deep breaths for several seconds before holding his breath for a few more and slowly breathing out again. Sal didn't have the capacity to argue this time. He started slowing his breathing to attempt to follow his father, but it was difficult due to the state he was in. After a few minutes, his breathing was much steadier and closer to normal. Henry grabbed a few tissues from the nightstand and used them to clean up Sal's face a bit. "I'm gonna go get you some water, okay? I'll be right back." Henry patted Sal on the cheek and Sal nodded, his voice a bit wrecked from the sobbing. Henry hurried to the kitchen cabinet and grabbed the first cup his hand could grab, filling it with water from the tap. The glass was almost full when the first firework went off, and Henry's blood went cold hearing Sal scream. Shit, shit, shit. He ran across the apartment to Sal's room, meeting Sal just as he was running out, the two crashing into each other beside the couch, and the plastic cup in Henry's hands thocked as it hit the ground and spilled water all over the floor. Sal was shaking so badly that when Henry held him, he shook too. His son's skinny fingers held onto his old sweater so tightly that Henry could feel his nails through it. Henry held his son's tense and stiff body in his arms, cradling the boy's head to his chest and putting his lips to his long, stringy hair as he spoke. He spoke reminders, affirmations, comforts, things to ground Sal, things to ground himself. After events like what the Fisher family went through, the Henrys of those families, the people who weren't there when tragedy struck, often struck with their survivor guilt, stuck imagining what it must have been like, the final moments of the people they loved the most, the pain of those spared. Henry doesn't have to imagine as much others might. His son's post-traumatic stress is more than enough. "Okay, I think it's time to go to Lisa's place, right? I think it's time to go to Lisa's," Henry said, trying to keep his voice steady. Sal nodded from his place in Henry's chest. Henry broke away, only slightly, to grab the throw blanket off the couch and put it around Sal's shoulders to comfort him. They started walking towards the door, Henry's arms wrapped around Sal to guide him gently before Sal started speaking in a tired, raspy voice. My face, Sal said simply. What is it, buddy? Henry asked softly, before he realized Sal wasn't wearing his prosthetic. Oh, right, we should get that. Is it in your room? Sal nodded, and they made their way to Sal's room once again to grab it. It was lying on the bed, face down, and Sal let his dad put it back on. Henry felt some of the tension in his son's shoulders release, and he snapped the fasteners in place. The two of them made their way to the elevator. Much of the complex was empty now, as people had left to go to the Wendigo Lake to shoot fireworks. As much as this sounded nice, Henry wasn't jealous of the families that got to go without issue, and neither was Sal. Over time, as the two had grown closer, gotten older, they had started to become more introverted, less inclined towards large, people-focused events like these. Maybe down the line they could, or maybe with a group of close friends. But for the time being, the two of them had experienced more than enough excitement for a lifetime. They would much rather stay home and watch movies than go somewhere crazy these days. In the elevator, they met Chug, one of Sal's friends. Neither Henry nor Sal were really in the mood to talk at the moment, but they greeted Chug politely anyway. Are you guys on your way to the lake? Chug asked. He took a bite out of the sandwich in his hand. No, we're on our way to Lisa's for our own little celebration. Henry tried not to spill too much of their personal life and pulled Sal a bit closer to his side. What's with the blanket? Is Sally sick? Chug asked. Henry was about to answer, but Sal spoke up and said, Yeah, he croaked, his voice still wrecked. Oh man, I heard something was going around. Hope I don't get it. It's been making people throw up anything they eat for days. He shuddered. Not that kind of sick, Sal said. Chug looked to Sal with a worried expression. It seemed like he put the pieces together, but Henry couldn't be sure either way. He wasn't going to elaborate. The rest of the ride down was quiet when the elevator hit its final stop. It dinged and opened the door. I hope you feel better soon, Sally Face, Chug said, giving Sal a hopeful smile. Thanks, Chug, Sal replied as the doors closed. They made their way down to the basement quietly. Sal jumped at every new firework, so Henry rubbed his shoulder comfortingly. When they got to Lisa's door, she opened it before they even knocked. She looked surprised. Oh, hello, boys. Come in, please, come in. She waved them through the door. Sorry, were you in the middle of something? Henry asked. Lisa shook her head. No, I was just going to look in the lost and found for something, but that can wait, she said. I made some movie snacks, and I grabbed some movies to choose from for tonight. Lisa beamed and gestured to her kitchen table. On it were some large bowls of popcorn, each with a different kind, one with cheese, one with M&Ms in it, and one with regular popcorn, plus a bag of caramel corn. There was a stack of tapes in the middle. I picked some suggestions, but I have more movies if you want to see something else, Lisa said as Sal went to look at the movies. They were all ones he and Larry had watched before, a couple of bad horror movies, some romance movies, some action movies, the likes. Henry kept his arms around Sal while he thanked Lisa. Sal shrugged his father's arm off to look at the movies stacked on the table. There was a certain kind of pit in Sal's stomach that wanted to see blood, but with how tense he was scared he might make it all worse by watching a horror movie. Action was going to be too much, he could tell that already. Maybe a corny romance movie was the safest option. Hey, Sally, Larry said as he strode out of his bedroom. He made his way over to Sal and kissed him on the head. Henry raised a curious brow but didn't say anything, and Sal laughed a little for the first time that night. What? I'm not saying nothing, Henry said. Larry picked up one of the bowls of popcorn in one arm and popped a small handful in his mouth. Hey, let's go get you smoked up, he said as he started dragging Sal to his room. The two heard their parents chuckle as they walked away. I just cleaned up my bong yesterday, so this is a good time, Larry kneeled beside his bed and grabbed a glass bong from underneath it. "Oh, thank God," Sal said. Larry rolled his eyes. "Oh, psh, smoking from a dirty bong isn't that bad. It smells like disease. You smell like disease." Larry then opened the top drawer to his dresser and pulled out a metal canister about the size of his palm. He pulled the lid off and pulled out a lighter. From the angle he was at, Sal could see that the canister was full of bud. Larry put the bong, lighter, and canister together in his bed before going to his shelf of tapes and pulling out a couple of mixtapes he made to listen to on the stereo in the treehouse. He was hoping that the music might drown out the sound of the fireworks. He threw those on the bed before his expression changed to something resembling broad discomfort. "You okay?" Sal asked. "Something's coming back to haunt me," Larry said. "What?" Larry didn't reply as he rushed out the bedroom. Sal poked his head out of the doorway and watched Larry make a beeline for the restroom, and he exchanged looks with his dad and Lisa. Guess he had to wait a bit. Sal sat on the floor and leaned his head back against the wall. He was really thankful that the fireworks were so quiet down here. They were just tiny pops coming from outside now. He didn't even jump at them. He took this time to see if maybe some of those coping skills would help shake his nerves. He took slow, deep breaths, reminded himself of the day, where he was, who he was with. He quietly talked to himself about the smaller details of his life, his daily routine, what he liked about Knockfell. He talked about what he was grateful for, the people in his life, the friends he had, the things he was looking forward to. He felt like he was going to cry when he realized that some of the weight on his chest had lifted by the time he was finished. "Aw, you love me?" Larry said, which did make Sal jump. Yeah, of course," Sal said, his heart beating a little too fast. He stood up slowly, then gently punched Larry in the shoulder. "But don't scare me like that, though. I thought you were in the bathroom." Sal adjusted the throw blanket over his shoulders. "I mean, I was, but now I'm not," Larry shrugged. "I thought you were getting haunted by something," Sal replied. "Yeah, I was. I had a half of a burrito last night, but I left it on my nightstand instead of putting it away in the fridge because I'm lazy. I ate it this morning, and just a bit ago, it came back to haunt me. So it was only a half burrito, so not too bad." "You're gross," Sal said. "I accepted my fate a long time ago, Sally," Larry replied. "Let's get going to the treehouse." Sal picked up the popcorn from the bed and the canister with the lighter inside. Larry picked up the tapes and the bong and made their way to the back door. Larry pushed his back against it because his arms were full, but as soon as they were both at the door, a huge firework went off again. Sal jumped harshly enough to spill some of the popcorn on the ground. He wasn't as bad as he was earlier, but if he didn't calm down soon enough, he might reach that point again, or worse. Hey, it's just fireworks," Larry said. He shoved the 3 tapes into his jean pockets and wrapped his now free arm around Sal. Right, Sal said. "It's just fireworks." Another smaller firework went off. It didn't scare him that badly, but he still ended up tripping over his own feet and falling on the ground, losing about half of the M&M popcorn he had. Larry immediately put the bong down and went to help Sal back up. He was laying on the ground on his side, cradling what was probably a sprained wrist. Then Larry noticed his hand had been scraped up. "Shit, you're bleeding," Larry said, trying to remember if he still had his first aid kit in his room or not. "I'm bleeding," Sal's weak voice spoke up. Larry suddenly felt like saying that was a mistake. Sal touched his prosthetic, staining it a bit with grass and blood before he pulled his hand away and looked at it in silence that Larry couldn't understand. My face," Sal said. "My face. It's bleeding." He sounded on the verge of tears, and Larry knew this had to be bad. He looked back between the back door and Sal, wondering if he'd be able to get Sal back inside to take care of his hand. He started to help Sal up off of the ground, but Sal started to panic. "Mom, where's Mom?" Sal looked to Larry, and for the first time, Larry wasn't sure that Sal knew who he was in that moment. Where is she? Is she hurt? Sal started to get more desperate, grabbing at Larry's shirt, covering it in some of the blood from his scrapes. He could tell that Sal was crying under that mask. Please, you have to help me. Please. Sal started to sob more openly, gripping Larry's shirt and sinking back down to his knees. Larry followed him, wrapping his arm around his best friend tightly. Larry, she's dead. My mama is dead. It sounded like Sal was starting to come back a little bit. I know, man. I know, Larry replied. After a few minutes of silence, Sal was the first to speak. Fuck, he said. Then he let out one dark laugh. The inside of my prosthetic is disgusting now. Sal inhaled sharply as he started to unbuckle it and take it off. The chance of people coming around to the back of Addison's for any reasons were low enough that Sal didn't feel like it would be a bad idea. The underside of his mask was so humid that it looked like his face was a bit sweaty. He wiped his face on the throw blanket over his shoulder, knowing that the ratty old thing could always be washed later. I'm sorry you had to see me like this, Sal said, as he started to pick up what was left of the bowl of popcorn. Larry put a hand on his shoulder, thumb rubbing little circles into bone. It's okay, dude. It's not your fault. You went through some horrible shit. Nobody would expect you to just get over it. You're too nice to me. Sal rubbed his cheek with the back of his hand. Without his prosthetic, Larry could see how tired Sal's eyes were. Let's go inside and try to get your hand fixed up, Larry said. I have a little med kit in my room we can use. Sal nodded, and they started to bring everything back to Larry's room again. Larry held the popcorn and the bong while Sal held the canister. Suddenly, another firework. Larry, halfway through the door already, whipped his head around to check on Sal, who was looking around him frantically, trying to remind himself that it was just fireworks. Larry put his stuff on the ground at the top of the stairs inside and shut the door, preparing himself for what he's seen before. Sal, I just need you to listen to me. It's okay. It's just fireworks. Larry kept trying to get closer, but Sal kept backing up the closer he got. No, I can't do this. I can't be here. Sal started breathing too quickly, and Larry could see his hands begin to shake. He dropped the canister on the ground. Sal, listen to me. Man, breathe with me, okay? Just breathe with me. It's just fireworks. Larry tried to lead by example, taking a slow and deep breaths, but Sal continued to panic. No, that's not going to work. It's going to get worse. Sal's voice wobbled. Yes, it is. I promise. Just come with me. One of Sal's hands gripped his hair very tightly. No, it won't. It never does. It never does. Nothing can make this hell go away. Sal bent over himself, grabbing at his face and pulling his hair as he started to sob again. I can't be here. I can't do this. You can't make me do this. Sal stood back up and started backing away from Larry and the apartment complex in a haze. It seemed like he was about to bolt. Sal, wait! Larry shouted as Sal tried to create a large distance between himself and Larry as he could. Larry ran after him, but Sal started running into the forest not far from the apartment, and he quickly lost him. He spent a couple of minutes shouting Sal's name around the forest before he realized the level of shit he's in right now. Larry burst out of the bedroom door to Henry and Lisa, a terrified expression on his face. Suddenly, it felt like the sinking feeling that had been sitting in Henry's gut since the afternoon had a reason to be there.
And that was part 1, chapter 1 of Death Lingering, a Sally Face podfic written by Candice Rising and read by Summer Audio. I made this and finished it all within the hour that I had to go to church. I am recording and editing in my class as we speak, waiting for my other teacher assistant character person to come back, in my class, because I'm kind of a daycare attendant thingy at my church. But anyway, that's enough of my rambling. I hope you all enjoyed and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.